Welcome to another edition of Minot Matters here on the Dakotan and brought to you by Shock Safe and Lock. I'm Jonathan Starr. Today, I'm joined by just someone that's pretty amazing. She used to write for the Dakotan, had a weekly column called She's Not From Around Here. She still does that column. You can find it. She can tell you everywhere you can find it. But today we're joined by Amy Allender.
Hey.
What a pleasure to have you on today.
Hey, I'm glad to be here.
Yes, thank you so much for joining us. So, some of my favorite titles that you had, there's nothing in North Dakota. That's a common one.
Yeah.
The tried and true secret of thriving where you are.
Okay.
That's a really good one. Something that people can apply. It don't matter where they're at.
Yeah.
And then probably something that you have to be from North Dakota to appreciate, sort of, is or at least the upper Midwest, the lake.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. So, some good titles of columns that you wrote. And, of course, you still do that, I believe, for the Northern Century and maybe for some others.
I do. You know, right now it's just at the Northern Century, and then I put them up on my website as well, so you can find them, on my blog too. But I would honestly love to expand the reach on that just because it is something that's so fun to write, and people think it's fun to read. So,
right.
Yeah.
Very neat. Very neat. Lovingly, you call this place Hot Dish Land, which you also have to appreciate too. If you're not from North Dakota, you wouldn't understand that. But of course, most of our audience is from Minot. They would understand that. I go to funerals every once in a while, and there's always a good hot dish.
Always.
Always. So there you go. But Amy, tell me a little bit about what brought you and your family to North Dakota.
Oh, this is a classic answer. The Air Force Base.
Yes, the Air Force Base. And where were you guys from originally?
My husband and I are both from Indiana. Most of our family's there, except for a couple outliers. And I mean, we like Indiana. We like the Midwest. I thrive in the Midwest environment. But through my husband's a pilot, through the process of his career, he was first stationed in Florida in the Panhandle, and then we moved to Oklahoma and then Louisiana. And honestly, in Louisiana, they said, we're really not sending people to Minot, so just plan to be here in Shreveport for a while. So we went ahead and bought a house, and then that ended up being our shortest assignment ever, and we got orders to Minot. But honestly, we were happy to come. We were moving to North Dakota and thought, oh, this is the best day of our life. We're getting out of the South where the trees just literally light on fire because it's so hot.
So hot all the time.
Yes, we could see the smoke in the distance in Shreveport, and I just remember thinking, what is this place? Take me back where it snows, please.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's cold all the time. You don't have to worry about, well, not all the time. We have good summers. We have beautiful summers. Yes, and that gets discredited.
I know. Most of the year is perfect here. The fall is wonderful. The spring.
And we have them.
Yes. And locals, are you from here?
I've been here 15 years.
Okay. Yes. And people say, when we have a spring, it's good. Or when we have a fall, it's good. But I think there is that season. It's here.
You're right.
And there's tons to do. Fall is such a key time. So many fun things start happening in the fall. And spring is such a good time too, because there's such this excitement that builds after a long, harsh winter that you see. You can't describe, it's hard to articulate what happens, but there's this huge shift in vibe and mindset, and just people are excited to be out, and they'll stop and visit. And I mean, we're talking when it's 40 degrees. We all think it's so warm, and we just feel different. Spring is great here.
It is.
Yes.
Yeah. You get it a little bit April, beginning of May. This year was weird because we got hot weather fast.
We did.
That was a little bit different, but it's amazing what happens when it turns 30 to 40 degrees. Just the entire shift. Like, people are out in shorts, flip-flops,
going on
whatever.
Walks.
Yeah.
Yes, it's good. And spring people diss on spring, but it's so volatile. You don't know what you're going to get. And there's excitement in that. Like, are we going to be having a blizzard? And a spring blizzard, to me, I think is very fun. I let that blizzard 2 Easters ago.
Yeah.
That was so fun because we were reaching 40 degrees during the day.
Right.
So I'm going out, I'm sledding, I'm making snowmen. This is great. Whereas a blizzard in January, no, I'm going to be inside.
Right, yeah.
Forget about it. I'll see you in March.
Right, exactly. Yeah, you're right about that. And there's the promise, when you get a blizzard in January, you're stuck with that for 4 months.
Yes.
But in April, a month from now, this is done.
Exactly.
So there's positives.
That's the fun stuff.
And that's part of what you do. You find the positive.
Yeah.
So there you go.
That's it. Yes, I'm a storyteller. I can always find the right story, the right way to spin it.
That's good. So you moved here from Louisiana, obviously previously from the Midwest, as well as you mentioned. How was the transition to Minot?
Oh, let's see. Okay, we were looking forward to coming here. That's not the story that everybody will tell you that
right, that's different.
Want to be here. That part is a little bit different. We were looking forward to coming to Minot, but there definitely was. There were hard things about coming here. We came the summer of 2012, and initially, so one summer after the flood,
right?
Initially, my husband was sent up, and he had orders that were unaccompanied, which basically just means the military's not going to pay for your family and your furniture to come up yet until he had secured housing. And I love my husband very much. He is my best friend, and the more time we can have together, the better.
Yes.
So we try and expedite these periods of time apart just because we like to be with each other. So I was in Louisiana looking for housing listings, and he was in North Dakota also looking at housing listings. But the real estate market was so insane. Yes, he would, I'd send him a list, and he'd go and look, and then, most of them were already under contract, and they would say, well, we just had to put it up as kind of a formality, but it's already under contract.
Yeah.
So we ended up finding one that was for sale by owner on South Hill, just on 3rd Street, up the street from the old ER there.
Okay.
And it worked out, being great, and we put it under contract. And before we closed on the house, I went ahead and moved up because we had technically secured housing, even though we didn't have a place to live. So at that point, our housing, when I first arrived in Minot, North Dakota, it was just, I took a plane. I sold our 1995 LeBaron convertible.
I love it.
The day I left, well, I donated it because it was not sellable. Let's be honest. I donated it the day I left Shreveport, Louisiana, and then I traveled with a cat as my carry-on luggage to Minot, North Dakota. And at the time, you had to do 2 layovers to get here. And then I walk into the old Minot Airport, which is unlike anything I've ever seen before anywhere. Sure. It's so small, and visually you can just see all the gates, and there was the concession stand, and the main item was hot dogs, DAWGZ on there. And
sounds appetizing.
Yes, and I've been traveling all day with my cat, and Derek, my husband, picked me up, and we were going to be living in a hotel, and I was starving, and it was 9:00 at night, and I said, well, what is open? And he said, nothing. Everybody's working in the oil field. There's not enough people to staff the fast food places, and they've had this flood. And so, I ate granola bars, and then Home Sweet Home was the Select Inn right across from the airport because all the hotels were full.
Right.
And now looking back, people are like, that's kind of a seedy place. But I lived in the Select Inn with my cat, and I stayed there for a whole month. And I like to say Carla Burbich was my first friend here because every day I would get up and watch Carla Burbich on the news. Yes. And she was the only person I knew for for a long time.
That's fantastic.
Yes. So that
sounds like a difficult transition there.
It makes for a great story.
Yeah, now, right?
Even at the time. I knew I was living you're home. This is going to be great.
We're a home.
Yes.
Yeah. Very cool. What was it like to begin to try to engage and get connected in with the community?
As a military spouse, I find this kind of difficult because your husband is moving here for a purpose. Your husband immediately has a place to go and talk to other people every single day. He has a purpose. He has people who are going to be introducing themselves to him, people who are expecting him to be there.
Right.
And I really didn't have any of that. And that's something that's always hard, no matter where you're going as a military spouse, whether it's Minot or whether it's your dream base somewhere else. You're always going to have this. And I initially tried to kind of break into the military circles and, the spouse organizations, because those are there. Right. But for some reason, I don't know. It was like I'm very much a townie, and the commute from town to base, it's not hard, but, for me, really, who has no business being up on base, what am I going to do up there? And I had a hard time meeting other spouses kind of initially or clicking with them. And And so instead, I just started diving into the community of Minot, which in itself is a difficult thing.
Yes.
Because there's a ton going on here. And even in 2012, there was a ton of stuff going on. But it's not maybe as mainstream. It's like, if you're not from around here, maybe you just don't know what's happening. Whereas once you're around, you know, of course the library does a book sale and that's where everybody goes.
Right.
Of course everybody knows where the lake is and that's where we are on the weekend. So
all summer long.
Yes, breaking in and figuring out some of those things and well, how do I find what's going on? That was kind of tricky, but I just kind of stuck with it and tried, and eventually I press myself on people. I insert myself, and I knew we were going to be in Minot for a few years. Like this was no longer a training assignment. I knew we were going to be here. This is something that we had prayed about, that God would put us in the right place, whether that was Shreveport or somewhere else. And Minot is where I found myself, and I had this just unwavering faith that we were in the right place and we were here for the right season, and my people were out there, and my purpose in this town was going to be out there somewhere. I just needed to press on until I found it. And I was going to insert myself in this town, darn it, whether they wanted me here or not.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, and there's so much negativity, and I just kept thinking, well, there's all these people who choose to live in Minot. There's all these people who are born and raised here that know all this stuff that I don't. Like, it's kind of a closed community.
Right.
For a reason. There's people who are thriving here, and they grew up, they could move anywhere they want. That, they're not sent here by the military.
Right.
They have freedom to go anywhere, but they're choosing to stay in Minot. So what are they seeing about this community that other people are not noticing? And that's what I really started to try and tap in on. Right.
It's an interesting point. We've interviewed many people on this podcast that have the story of, I grew up in Minot or something similar. Mm-hmm. I moved away and I came back.
Yeah.
There's something about Minot that pulls people back, that just takes a little bit piece of their heart, and they just have to go back to it.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, I tell people all the time, I'm living the dream out here. Last night talked to my husband, who's now away on a National Guard assignment. And I just said, I just love it here. We have such a good quality of life. I cannot believe that I get to wake up and live in Minot, North Dakota every day. And what a silly thing, but who doesn't want to live in the best place? Like believe that they're living in the best place in the world. And I wake up every day and I want that to be the story. Like I said, I'm good at spinning a story. I want that to be the narrative of my life. I want my kids to think, we do live in a great place. And so, let's wake up every morning and find reasons that support this belief and edify that.
Absolutely. One thing you say on your website is, I can't change your circumstances, but I will teach you small things that have a big impact on your perspective so you can thrive. Yeah. And it sounds like that's exactly the adoption of that right there.
Yes.
Implementation as well.
It changes stuff.
Right. It does.
I have been in a lot of very difficult circumstances and have even been told, well, you've got to wait for your circumstances to change and then things will change. And to me, that just became an unacceptable mantra to wait on something else to change when there are things that we can always take control over. Right. Our perception is one of those. The narrative that we're weaving and telling ourselves and the narrative that we're buying into is one of those too. And if you can start to do that in small ways, I mean, that's what makes for sustainable peace and contentment.
Yeah.
No matter where you are.
That's really good stuff right there. And I agree with that. Some people say, and I mentioned it in one of the vlog titles, there's nothing in North Dakota. There's just nothing to do in Minot. And we kind of touched on it. I love
saying that.
Yeah, you do. It's the go-to. All that generic conversation. What do you say to people like that? They're living in Minot and they're like, there's just nothing to do here.
Well, what I say, because I see that, I just tell them that that's not true.
That's not true. Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, what else can you just say to something that's just an untruth? And it's not on, maybe it's not necessarily on them. Like, I never want to point the finger back, and say, well, it's you're not finding things, you're not looking hard enough or whatever. Right. But people have that perception, people have that mentality, and it's that in itself creates emotions, right? That, you're lonely, you're dissatisfied with your life. That's in a good place to be. So I don't want to feed into that negativity. One thing that I have found is that people often say there's nothing to do in North Dakota because that is a very easy common ground. When you don't know anybody and you're looking to find some kind of camaraderie, I call it negative camaraderie. Yep. It's very easy to say, well, I moved to Minot because I had no choice. Well, I moved to Minot because I had no choice. Right. Well, I don't think there's anything to do in North Dakota. Well, there isn't anything. And then you can just kind of complain and bash on Minot, and you're kind of a bully over it. If you want to thrive here, if you want to enjoy your years here, I'm happy to tell you the things. And so I guess my first response is, well, that's not true. There's plenty to do. But maybe a gentler response is, I'm always busy.
Yeah.
And I mean, our plate is as full as we like it to be. Right. We have as many activities as we want and often need to be very discerning as to what we do and what we don't do in any given week. Yeah. Because I find so many things to do here.
That's really good. I believe it's Visit Minot that literally has guides. Basically, they have their term for them when people move here. But it really goes back to kind of like the general theme of what you're saying is it's a mindset. Yeah. It don't matter how much support someone has. If they don't want to be here, then there's nothing to do here. That's just, it's the way it is. Yeah. In their head, there's nothing to do here.
Well, I mean, being military, we lived, like I said, I went through the list. We've lived in a handful of places. We lived in Indiana, and I hear people say there's nothing to do everywhere.
Right,
where
exactly.
We're from in northern Indiana, we're 2 hours from Chicago, and within 30 minutes of basically anything you want. And I talk to people from our hometown who are like, well, there's nothing to do here. Right. When we lived in the panhandle of Florida, people would complain and say, well, this is the worst assignment I've ever had. And, okay, well, what exactly are you looking for?
Right, exactly. Yeah. What's your mind?
Tell me.
If you're looking for where you grew up, you're going to have to go back there. Yeah. But if you're going to have a positive mindset where you're at, then there's a lot of positive things that are going on around us. I have a very important question for you. Do you actually like hot dishes?
Do I? Yes.
You do?
Yeah, who doesn't? Do you not like hot dishes?
All right.
I still think hot dish is a made-up word, but...
yeah, probably. You're probably right on that.
They're casseroles.
Yeah.
Where I come from.
And it really depends on the type. Sometimes around, during Lent and stuff like that, you'll get like these tuna casseroles and stuff like that. Mm. That's not as positive. Tuna hot dish.
Yeah. Where I come from, we call it tuna noodle casserole.
Gotcha.
But yeah, I don't like tuna, so that one's a pass on me. But who doesn't? I mean, take a bite of tater tot hot dish, and like, who is going to say they don't like
I like tater tot hot dish.
Yes, you have.
I like tater tots.
You have to.
Yes. What's your favorite hot dish? Is it tater tot hot dish?
I would say yes, but probably, I don't know, maybe because I haven't had a lot of other hot dishes. Like if someone brings a hot dish or we make a hot dish, because I'm still a little confused on what is and isn't, because people will say, right, I love corn casserole. I'm from Indiana, and corn's kind of our jam. Okay. I love corn casserole, and I have said, well, would it be corn hot dish here? Yeah. I want to do it right. I want to do right by the local, culture. And I've been told, no, it's not. And there's a variety of reasons that I've been given. One is because it does not contain a cream of soup. Okay. One is that it's meatless, interesting. And everybody has their different markers as to what makes up a hot dish. Isn't a hot dish, and
interesting.
Yeah.
So people actually call stuff casserole around here.
They do.
Interesting.
They do. They have very specific things. And see, I don't know. I mean, I think it's probably green bean casserole here still, but we'd have to find an actual local. If you
put bacon in it, then it could be a hot dish.
I don't know.
Yeah. Interesting.
I don't know.
Well, it's a whole nother world right there.
This is outside of my realm of expertise.
If you're listening to this and you know the answers to these things, let us know, because
send me a message.
This is important.
This is what keeps me up at night.
Yeah, absolutely. The different hot dishes. So I had this question, and it's already been answered really, but I'm going to still ask it because I want it to be answered specifically. Do you genuinely want to stay in Minot? And I'm anticipating what the answer is, but I want to know why. What is it? What is it about Minot that pulls your heartstrings?
All right. Okay. So, and this is controversial because I am like the Minot guru, and I am the face of you should just love your life in Minot. We are in Minot we don't have any plans to move at the current juncture. My husband separated from full-time active duty Air Force last June, And now he serves with a National Guard unit in Michigan. So it's about an hour-ish away from our hometown. So when he has to go and serve there, a lot of times we bundle it into a family trip and we go visit family, and he's in Michigan. We don't have any desire right now to leave. He's got a great job. He found a good opportunity here. He works with Executive Air Corporation, Taxi Corporation. I'm probably not saying it. We just call it Executive Air. Anyway, they do a lot of dock charters for Trinity.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And patient charters for Trinity, and some business charters too. Anyway, it's a great job. It's a good quality of life. There's things about living in Minot that make being a pilot's wife with someone here easier than maybe anywhere else with a job like this. In even a slightly larger city, like I'm talking about a metro like Rapid City, even South Dakota, which isn't that much larger. It's just kind of a different structure of city than Minot is. Right. If you have a job similar to this, you've got to be in the hangar 12 hours, you know, all your shift. In Minot, it is so easy to commute. I mean, we live literally 5 minutes away from the airport, and we're not right next to the airport. That he's just on call from home. I see him more now. The last time I saw him this much, we were in high school together. Wow. It's so great. So that's definitely a piece of it. But being that most of our family is there in northern Indiana, we do keep our ears out for an opportunity that would maybe take us closer, maybe to the Michigan area, so he could not need to do these long commutes to go serve with the National Guard. And our families are getting older, and we've got 2 little kids, and we want them to know their cousins. We want them to know their aunts and uncles and their grandparents, and that's important to us too. So we keep our ear to the ground for opportunities that may take us that way, not necessarily seeking it out and fingers crossed that we want to move. But now we definitely are measuring it against, well, right now the quality of life that we have here in Minot is so good. It's so good for this season that when we explore another opportunity, if it's not going to give us the quality of life we can have here, then right now we're not going to take that. Right. And obviously a piece of it is that we see each other more. Another piece is I'm a mom of 2 little kids, and it's hard to get anywhere on time. You're a parent, you might know this. It's hard to get anywhere on time, but in Minot, I'm hardly ever late because everything's 5 minits away, except for Walmart, which feels like we are going on a trip. Like, boys, pack your snacks, get your crayons, because it's going to be a long one. We got to cross 20th Avenue South to get over there.
Exactly.
I mean that, but I mean, we're on time everywhere we go. It's great. Yeah. Even when we lived in smaller places, we were in Rapid City, and we loved Rapid City. You'd be crazy not to love Rapid. Rapid's a great place, but we didn't take advantage of nearly as many things in the community, arts, sports, we didn't take advantage of nearly as much there as we do here. And it comes down to convenience. Things are much closer here. I mean, we can leave our kids with a babysitter and literally be to where we need to be in 5 minutes. That's what happened today. I dropped my kids off with the neighbor, and I drove, I think, 8 minutes and was here relatively on time. Here, things are accessible because they're close. They're accessible because they're inexpensive. You're not paying city prices to do things. Even things like taking my kids to high air ground. It's so much more affordable here than even back in our hometown, which isn't a metropolis, you know? But it is. And we've got all kinds of free stuff that's here. I mean, we take advantage of the brass band concerts in the city chorale, chamber chorale. Yes. We go to the symphony. The kids don't go to that, but
have you been to the deal on Main Street during Thursdays during the?
Yes, of course. You know, Arts in the City. We go to that, and Arts in the Park, and I mean, it is a banquet feast of playgrounds here, and we don't have that where we come from. Any other town that we've been in, getting to a playground is much more of an ordeal. I'm within walking distance of 2. Wow. This is still a place where elementary schools leave the gates open on their playgrounds. And so, I mean, not only do we have city maintained playgrounds, we can go to any elementary school and play on their playground. There's just so many things here that make this a good place. We can ice skate in the winter, and in Minot, I mean, cut me off because I'm going to go
this is interesting. I'm learning stuff.
Okay. And I tell people you can be anything you want in Minot.
That's true.
You can, because you can try so many things. can be on a board. You
Right.
can serve on a board. You can be the president of a board in Minot,
Right.
where that's not going to happen somewhere else.
No.
I've learned to curl and square dance
Oh,
since
man.
moving here. I've learned to make lefse. I mean,
That's good stuff.
You can learn anything.
Yes.
And pick up. People are not easy. People are eager to share what they know. We did archery. The Parks Department offers a 5-week archery course. I think it starts in September. It's coming up. It's $20.
Oh, wow.
Like, what?
Yeah.
That's crazy. And you get instruction. You don't have to supply anything. You just show up and learn archery for $20.
That's neat.
And it's probably 5 minutes from your house. You know,
Right.
like,
There's so much you can do.
yes, that's not happening elsewhere. Our
Right.
library is just absolutely phenomenal. And people know you. People know us. They know my kids. They care about us.
Right.
It's so nice, and we feel very, very safe here. I know Minot's not a perfect place. I know there's crime. We're using common sense, but I feel so much ease here. I don't feel afraid taking my kids out by myself. I don't feel afraid being by myself when my husband's gone overnight for work trips.
Right. It's amazing. You go somewhere first off, with the base of you go somewhere for a day. So you go to Minneapolis for a day or whatever big city it is, and you begin to enjoy the amenities of that place, right?
Mm-hmm.
Chick-fil-A. I love Chick-fil-A. Of course, Bismarck has it now,
Everybody loves Chick-fil-A.
Right.
It'd be crazy not to love Chick-fil-A.
Exactly. So you begin to enjoy those things, but you stay in that same place, and you're like, I should just move here. Like this is a nice place. You got everything you need. You know, there's a little bit of traffic, but man, there's so much you can do here.
Yeah.
And then you stay there for a week, and you start getting miserable. You're like, dude, I'm sick of traffic. If I want to go to Chick-fil-A right now, it's going to take me 25 minutes to get there because of traffic.
Yes.
And the different things that come up, and you come back to Minot, and it's so peaceful. It's home. You have your struggles, but the struggles really, they're not that bad. They're offset by the good things that are going on here.
And for me, something else that's nice, and maybe this isn't nice for everybody, but I feel very comfortable within boundaries. This helps me. It's just kind of how my brain is. I feel very comfortable within some kind of set of boundaries. And if there's too many options, if there's too much, like my brain shuts down, and I do have a very hard time making choices over this. I mean, there is such a thing as decision fatigue. It's fascinating if you look into it.
Right.
And in Minot, one of the things that I really appreciate is that there is a limit to our options.
Right.
They're here, for me, it's a comfortable amount of options. But I know my options, and I know the limit to it. And there's more options that I haven't even tapped into. There's always things that I could still be trying, but there's some kind of limit to it, where somewhere else I freeze up because, well, what do we want to do? And no matter what I do, I need to be going 30 minutes in one direction or another just from my house to get there. And then what if I don't even like it?
Right.
Where here, you can go, and if it's not what you wanted, then just go somewhere else, and you're only driving 10 minutes.
Right. Yeah.
It's amazing the amount of things when someone comes to visit us, what we knock out in a single day, because we're not commuting 30 minutes to each thing.
That's a really good point. Part of what makes Minot wonderful is probably the melting pot that it's becoming. You got people moving from all over. It really makes it kind of a diverse little town, truly. And part of that is the skills that they bring in is kind of what I'm getting at. The experiences that they bring in and all that, it makes it a really unique town, because you have the people that are from here that have been here for 40, 50 years, the farm family that's passed down the farm to 3 generations and whatever. And then you've got the people that move in from Air Force, pilots, doctors, the different things that move in. Really makes it a unique community. And there's probably a story that you could tell in that. But basically what I want to kind of transition to is kind of what you do as well. We talked about the Fun Mom, the different things you do there, but you also do motivational speaking. And on the website, you can learn a lot about that. You come from a background of suicidal depression, which is pretty severe. So tell me a little bit about that, and about the mindset that you were able to set once you had moved to Minot.
Okay. Well, for me, mental health, I think this is an important topic for a lot of reasons. And I think it's important to note that depression and anxiety don't have a certain look. When I talk to kids, especially in schools, it's not like we can look at someone and say, well, there's a weird loner, like that's someone who's going to be struggling mentally, or there's someone who's not mentally strong and resilient, because I really didn't fit that mold. I have this great family. My parents love me very much, and it's very, trauma, like exploring your own trauma is a thing, and it's an important thing to be doing. But I would say, my background's pretty free of trauma. Just a very standard middle class Indiana upbringing with a family that I love very much and who loves me very much. And yet still going back to even like the earliest I really remember maybe starting to struggle with like panic attacks and anxiety that was beyond what maybe would be like a normal or standard marker for a child of that age would be around 7. And this is something that just continued to cyclically build where I would be fine, but I looked very, very much great, fine from the outside. Good student, lots of friends, active, outgoing, like to be around people, you get that picture. But yet this was still something that continued to come up. And I talk about it cyclically because it was almost like when a major life change would happen, like that would really trigger things and trigger it in a way that I couldn't get back on top of it. Like I couldn't control my thought life, if that makes sense. And I kind of giggle while I'm talking about that because, what the heck is somebody who struggles with that doing as a military spouse? Like, what are you doing as a pilot's wife? Because that is your lifestyle now. It's always major life change. And I don't know. Like we can talk about my life choices another time. but so we moved to Minot, and I was struggling some because of the separation. I wasn't sure how long my husband left, and I really wasn't sure how long I was going to be alone in Louisiana with a house that we weren't really like it wasn't a hot market there. That wasn't selling super quick. And, we've got a house here that we want to get rid of, and we want a house there and we can't get it. But I moved to Minot, and it wasn't like I moved into Minot and, oh boy, I saw the brown and the treelessness and my mental health plummeted. That's not the story. For me, there was this perfect storm of circumstances that really led to a flare up of mental unwellness, of mental illness like I'd never experienced. I had a traumatic back injury that occurred. I was a fitness instructor, which was very helpful when it came to like moving all the time. If I can get a job at a gym, and then like there's a place where people have to talk to me. I'm here and I'm telling them how many squats to do. So I hurt my back during a fitness class, and during a senior adult fitness class to be exact. And I ended up needing back surgery, and the back surgery failed. And they thought maybe it failed, and I was still having a hard time walking, and I was definitely dependent on prescription painkillers, where I just couldn't function without it. And I had a small business where I did lots of freelance photography, web design, graphic design as well, and just my identity was extremely wrapped up in what I was doing. And then when all of that, like, that's just not a sure foundation to rest who you are and your self-worth upon. It's just not, because circumstances can knock that out. And then who are you? And you're left very adrift. And then mixed in with this, there were, separations from my husband, temporary assignments. Eventually things just fell apart to a point that I couldn't stay on top of my mental health. Like it fell apart where I was panic attacks all the time, every single night, ruminating thoughts. And you get to a point where you realize this is how depression and anxiety kills a person. Because even though maybe I want to be alive, I cannot continue to live in this state. And for a person who loves people and loves using my brain, I'm very much a learner, to have my mental capacity just gone and to see myself as this huge burden to my husband. And I saw a lot of providers during this time who even it's sad, but it's part of my story, who implied that I was a burden to my husband. Like, well, can you not wait and have this crisis another time? Don't you know he's an officer in the military? Do you understand what kind of stress this is putting on him when he has a mission to fulfill? And I saw myself definitely as a burden, and I love Derek so much, more than myself, for sure. And so, then you get those thoughts of, well, wouldn't it be better if I was just eliminated from this situation? And that's a lie, but that's kind of where I was.
Right.
Yeah. In a suicidal depression.
Right. Basically, how did what was the thing that were able to pull you out? What was the mindset that you were able to achieve that helped pull you out of that, basically?
Okay. Yeah, please bring me back on topic. But when we talk about mental health, things are so intertwined that it's hard to just give that answer without
the understanding.
The understanding of where that came from. Okay, so it wasn't just one thing, but there came a point in January of 2015 where things were very, very, very bad, and bad enough that Derek needed to go to Alabama for a temporary training assignment, and we weren't comfortable leaving me home alone. We just weren't. So I traveled with him for that, and again, having these almost nightly panic attacks, and I struggled through one, and every single night the same thoughts would play out and play out and play out. And for some reason on this night, something different happened where just one slightly different thought broke through, and that thought was, this is how a person dies. Mm-hmm. If you need to fix this or you will die. Right. Forget what providers are telling you. You've got to find a way to fix this, or this is going to be the thing that kills you. Maybe not this time, but you've seen this cycle happen before, and this is going to be what comes for you in the end. And that, to me, was the thing. I was a very stubborn child, like the spirited child that God bless my mom. Right. Because now I have a spirited child. I'm like, look at this. How do people do this? Like, how do I know how to use a toilet? Golly. That was me. And so that thing that I thought, nobody wants a stubborn child, is what saved my life. That I thought, I don't want this to be the thing that kills me, and I will stop at nothing to find someone who can help me and give me lasting help. And so I eventually did find a counselor who I worked very closely with, and it was very intense. And the things I learned there are really what taught me to. It wasn't one simple thing, and it wasn't just talking out my problems. It was a process of retraining my brain, understanding that I do have authority over my thoughts. My thoughts are not always true, and I can push them into submission to what I know is true. And I have that authority, and I needed to reshape and reprogram my brain, and it was exceptionally hard work, but obviously it paid off. Right. And I was 27 at the time, I think, if I do the math right. I was 27 at the time, and maybe 28 at the time, and it took all those years to learn those patterns and ingrain them very deeply. Right. So it took a while. There wasn't an easy fix, and that's what I tell people. It's not an easy fix, but it's these small incremental things that you can start doing every day to take more control over your story, to take more control back over your thoughts. Your thoughts don't need to be running you. You run you. Yeah, that's big. Power over your thoughts, not just letting it run, because when you give your imagination room to run, it's amazing what it can come up with. Yeah. Right? Yeah. And I liked what you said earlier about you wanted to live, but maybe it was just best if you were gone, if you're eliminated. And I think that's something that's also interesting, is we create this idea of what suicidal depression would be like when we haven't truly battled it. Mm-hmm. I'm sure everybody's battled depression to some point, some level in their life, maybe not severe, but you know, it'd be natural that everybody would. And so we think we know what it is, but when you want to live, but then you also reason to the point, well, maybe it's just best I'm eliminated. Mm-hmm. That's powerful, and that's something where you got to check on the people next to you, and you have to care about the people that are next to you. We see stories in the news frequently about people who commit suicide and people around them say, you know, they were just the light of the room and
Yeah.
we never saw this coming. And
Right.
I would have been one of those situations where
Right.
you know, she was a ministry leader and she went to church and,
Right.
you know, she knew God, and no, Christians aren't exempt from this either.
Absolutely.
And well, what was wrong? And she prayed and we never saw this. She had a very healthy marriage.
Mm-hmm.
You just don't know.
Don't know. Right. But you turned that into a story where you also help others now, if I understand correctly.
Yeah, ideally, yes, because this is a problem and we've seen it growing, and you can look at the statistics on depression and anxiety and panic and even just stress disorders growing. And if this is something that I have found my way out of and I live in with so much peace now, I mean, I don't know that I haven't had a bad day in at least 7 years.
Right. Yeah.
You know,
that's awesome.
Yes. Why would you not want to show up for your life a little bit more and experience a little more freedom, even if you're not in the bowels of depression?
Right.
Who doesn't want a little more peace in their life? And it just seems like such a slap in the face to the circumstances that put me there. And if you're a spiritual person, you know, a slap in the face to the enemy, the forces of evil that would have wanted me to be eliminated.
Yeah.
What a slap in the face to those things my faith was also very confused at the time. And there is no better way to shut that down than completely see it redeemed into something. I'm not ashamed by this.
Right.
It's not something I keep secret from anybody. Like, I'll come on your podcast. You put it wherever you want. I'm not ashamed by this. Something very beautiful has happened through these circumstances. And why would I not want to help other people experience that as well?
Right.
It produces benefits across the board for our entire community. I mean, even if you can do something as simple as reshape the narrative around your business for your employees, you have greater employee retention. If you can create a narrative that gives your employees deeper satisfaction in their job, to see deeper meaning in what they do, whether they're a mechanic on the B-52 or working a drive-through window at McDonald's. I mean, how can you reshape that to see a great meaning and a great purpose and in that? And I mean, through that, a lot of benefits happen, not just for the individual, but for companies. And when companies thrive, our community thrives.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. It trickles outward.
You begin to care. There's something that I see every once in a while from Dave Ramsey for employers about stop losing your employee for $2 else somewhere, go and create and help them have financial freedom. Yeah. And it's that same concept in whatever else. Stop being scared of losing your employee to whatever and just start helping them. Start being that support for them, and it changes things. Yes.
And doing so, I mean, if you feed into mental health, no matter where you are, and I use employees and employers as one example, but I mean, if you can feed into that mindset piece of things, you're creating leaders. And who doesn't want more leaders? We're always going to have an influx of people coming in at the bottom, you know, and build them up and equip them to move up and to experience that freedom, where then if they have freedom in their mind, and I'm going to be talking about this with the Military Affairs Committee coming up in September, if we can create this freedom of mind, then our military members are able to focus more on their task at work and focus on the mission when they're not stressed about what's going on at home. And a piece of that at the Military Affairs Committee meeting is going to be talking about, well, why is it so important that we help people reshape their perspective about Minot?
Right.
And that's because if you know your spouse is at home and miserable and suffering, then part of you as the service member, you're thinking about that when you're on the job. Yep. And let's free their mind up to say, my job here is important. This mission is important. This place is great. This is a great assignment, and show that to the whole family. Right. And how can that move us forward?
You said you haven't had a bad day in 7 years. Have you had the ingredients for a bad day?
Have I had the ingredients? I don't know. Okay, so maybe, and it's hard for me now because it's been so long to even look back and think, like, what? Gosh, because I remember years, like a New Year's Eve would roll around and I would be like, oh, I'm just so glad this year's over. And now I'm like, Amy, what were you thinking? You're
Really?
rolling in on 40. Like, why would you be saying that?
I love it.
Okay, the ingredients for a bad day. I mean, there's hard circumstances. Probably.
Right.
I mean, there's hard circumstances that come up every single day. I'm a mom of 2 little kids. And I mean, I shared even like today was kind of a trying day, but now I kind of look at the clock and I look at, well, how long was that? Like, how long were my kids fighting and squabbling? It was, or how long did that crisis actually take me to clean up? How long did it take me to calm down? Well, not very long. And so when I put that in perspective of 24 hours, no, even when I just compare it hour for hour, there's typically more good or at least neutral minutes in a day than bad minutes in a day.
Right. Yep. It's like the thing you see every once in a while of if you had $86,000 and you lost $100, would you go and throw away the other 86,000?
Yeah. Yes.
And no, you won it. So you have 86, I think it's seconds, just over 86,000 seconds in a day. And if you have a bad minute or a bad 5 minutes, you're really going to throw away your whole day just over that.
Yeah. Even if it was a really bad, 5 minutes, well then in that, and this is what I tell others to do, and this is what helped me, like in that 5 minutes, well, experience that bad, identify, well, what emotions am I feeling? What thoughts am I having? Are my thoughts true or false? How can I reshape my perspective on this? And ultimately, like, what actions can I take? What do I have control over to move forward? As a mom, sometimes I get overwhelmed. I get cranky. I just wrote about this today, how, what's my big secret for keeping it all together? And the big secret is I don't, because when things start to fall apart a little bit, I let them fall apart a little bit and catch it there before it becomes a catastrophe. And I just stop and get curious. What's causing this high stress? Why do I feel like I need to raise my voice right now?
Right.
And what choices can I make going forward? Even if that means like, we're going outside or we're going for ice cream right now because we need to turn this ship around and get back so that we can, at the end of this day, say, we had a great time getting ice cream today.
Absolutely.
Like,
Focus on the positive. Well, Amy,
and create a positive.
Yeah. That's big too. Yeah. That could be a podcast in of itself, learning how to create positive in bad situations. It's been awesome having you on.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
Really appreciate you taking time and doing that. And hopefully we'll have you on again sometime in the future. Where can people find you at?
Okay, so amyallender.com is my website, and I'm on Facebook and Instagram. If you look for Amy Allender, you can find me there. It's Amy_Allender on Instagram.
There you go.
And I just this week launched a second Instagram account called Hey Minot.
Okay.
Because I answer these questions all the time about what is there to do and why do you like it? And it was just feeling too crowded in my single account where I do want to share, mindset and mental health and how I organize things as a mom and like that kind of stuff. Right. But that reach is kind of a little bit broader. Farther.
Yep.
And I share, and people, it's funny, people care. People who follow me care about what's going on in Minot. They love seeing the weird stuff I get up to out here. Yeah. Trash Christmas is another podcast we can talk about, but whatever. But anyway, I just thought, these tips and tricks for what I'm doing in Minot, that needs its own space. So you can also join me on Hey Minot.
There we go.
And I'm just now getting content up, but yeah.
Sounds good. Well, excited. Hope that goes well. And thank you to everyone for listening to this episode of Minot Matters here at the Dakotan and brought to you by Shock Safe and Lock. Be sure to follow us on YouTube, like us on Facebook, be part of the family. We're excited about what's going on and the new content we have coming out. Thank you and have a good day.